This chapter is on the digestive system. The structure of the digestive system includes a long tract that goes from the mouth to the anus, and its function includes ingestion of that food in the oral cavity, mixing of the food with chemicals called enzymes, transportation of those foodstuffs, breakdown of the foodstuffs, which begins initially once we put the food in our mouth, absorption of the digestive nutrients, which happens predominantly in the small intestine, and then finally secretion into the digestive tract and expelling of the waste which is called defecation. So once we put the food into our mouth, saliva is produced from our salivary glands, and that saliva starts to form what is called a bolus of food, essentially a ball of food, which is then going to continue down into the esophagus, stomach, and beyond. The stomach is going to start to convert that bolus into chyme, which is a paste-like substance. That paste-like substance is then going to be ready to enter into the small intestine. So the digestive system, as I mentioned, is a long, continuous tube. You should know the parts of the tube, beginning with the oral cavity, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and finally the anus. So we can see those images shown on the right side of your diagram on the slide. So they begin with the oral cavity, pharynx or the throat, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and anus. So if we were to number them in order, we would begin with the oral cavity, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and then anal canal. In addition to this long tube, there's also some accessory digestive organs which are going to help with the various functions of the digestive system. For example, we have in the oral cavity the teeth and the tongue, as well as salivary glands. In the abdominal cavity, we have the main metabolic organ, which is the liver. Underneath the liver, on the posterior side of it, is the gallbladder. Just posterior to the stomach is the pancreas. So those are our 6 accessory digestive organs. And we'll be talking about what each of those actually do. So functions of the digestive system more specifically include ingestion of the foodstuffs. So putting those foodstuffs in our mouth, motility throughout the digestive system, including peristalsis and segmentation. And peristalsis is a little different than segmentation. It's the alternating contraction and relaxation of the smooth muscle surrounding the digestive tract. And segmentation is sort of back and forth movement. The next function is secretion, which involves release of the mucin or fluids such as acid in the stomach, bile, which is stored in the digestive or in the gallbladder, and digestive enzymes into the small intestine. Digestion includes breaking large food items into smaller structures, and that is actually called catabolism. Once that occurs, once we have these smaller units, then absorption can occur, where molecules move across the GI tract epithelium and into the blood or the lymph. Then whatever is remaining in the colon is eventually continues into the anus, where defecation of those indigestible waste products occur in the form of feces. So ingestion is the introduction of materials into the mouth. Motility is voluntary and involuntary contractions that mix and move peristalsis through the GI tract. In fact, peristalsis is a wave of muscular contraction. Another way to think of it is the alternation of contraction and relaxation of smooth muscle. Contraction and relaxation. Mixing or segmentation is the name of the churning movements in the small intestine that disperse ingested materials and combine them with digestive secretions. So we're going to begin with the oral cavity here. And the oral cavity is going to be lined with non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, just like the oropharynx is. So the reason it's non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium is so that it can withstand any abrasion that happens because of food. Mechanical digestion begins here of specifically carbohydrates with the teeth as well as the tongue. Chemical digestion begins here with salivary amylase, which is in saliva. So really the first of the foodstuffs is broken down in the oral cavity. The other foodstuffs would be the lipids and the proteins, and especially the proteins are not chemically digested until the stomach. One of the events that happens in the oral cavity is mastication, and the word mastication means chewing and mixing of the food with saliva. So our teeth, an accessory structure, are going to include 20 milk teeth or deciduous teeth, also called baby teeth, and they are going to be replaced by 32 permanent teeth, which we have as adults. There's not a whole lot you need to know about teeth, but you do need to know that the incisors are the most anterior, and they're shaped like chisels for slicing. Canines are just posterior, lateral to that, and they're pointed for puncturing and tearing. Premolars are behind those, and they have flat crowns for crushing and grinding, which are just like molars. Molars are the thickest and most posterior teeth, and they're important for crushing as well as grinding. So each quadrant has 2 incisors, 1 canine, 2 premolars, and 3 molars. That would be half of the lower teeth would be 1 quadrant. So we have 4 different quadrants. The pharynx is the throat. It's the muscular tube shared by the digestive and respiratory system. As you've already learned, the oropharynx and the laryngopharynx are part of the digestive system, and they have non-stratified squamous epithelium. So they're regions that have both air as well as indigested food.